Here we are today with another book by Stephen King. I've written so many reviews on books by Stephen King, but have hesitated to upload them because I didn't want this channel to be just about Stephen King. However, I recently read The Dead Zone. And there are so many things to unpack. I think I'm even going to do like 4 videos on this book. Maybe not, I don't know. If you're new here, my name is Anne and I'm Stephen King's #1 fan. When I mentioned on Instagram that I started reading The Dead Zone, I got a few messages from friends telling me that they hadn't loved it. I understand why some people might believe that maybe this is not one of his masterpieces, but for me, I think that this book over here, this 500 pages, contain all the reasons why I love Stephen King's writing. The author successfully combines and mixes various tropes from different genres in a single novel, which is pretty impressive. And although Stephen King is known as the king of horror, I think he's much more than that. There's no argument for inconsistency in this novel because he didn't switch genres midways or change the topic. He just wrote a book about many things. It's like our lives. With The Dead Zone, Stephen King delivers a psychological thriller which combines action, religion, romance, the paranormal, and the pursuit of justice, and so much more. I've noticed that when people think of The Dead Zone, however, they immediately think of Greg Stilson. But in reality, this joke of a politician is just the tip of the iceberg. The Dead Zone is about Johnny Smith. It's about a man who had an accident, a terrible accident actually, and woke up from a coma 4 or 5 years later, only to realize that he would have been better off dead. By the time Johnny recovered, he was drowning in medical bills. His parents were getting older. The woman he loved married another guy. His mom had gone down the religious rabbit hole. There's no coming back from that. And on top of that, he even gained some superpowers. These powers helped him see things in the past, the present, and the future. Just by touching people or things, he would get visions or something. The fact that Johnny Smith shook hands with a candidate and predicted that maybe he would cause World War III due to mishandling and miscommunication, that's just part of Johnny's life. To me, the main story is the tragic life of Johnny Smith. I think that should have been the title of the book. Not so horror-y though. Yes, it is also a political thriller, and yes, it could also be interpreted as a romantic thriller. Because that's part of life, politics and romance. But that's for another time. There are so many things going on in this novel, but the main focus is Johnny, the protagonist. He's the one who suffers when he can't walk, and he goes through surgery after surgery and goes through physical therapy and all that good stuff. When he loses his girlfriend, his mother, his dignity, when journalists follow him all around, when people send him stuff to touch and tell them about their loved ones, when he predicts a fire but couldn't save everyone, when he becomes obsessed with Greg Stilson. It's all about Johnny, and the rest are just on the side. I don't know if Greg Stilson became the focus of the novel after Donald Trump was elected president of the United States, or if that was perceived from the publication of the book. But to me, it seems like we're giving him like a louder voice than he deserves. Sure, there is room to make political commentary, but that's like another story for another day. So what's the story about? It's about John's suffering and the powers he gained through that suffering, or before. Let's look at that. Everything began with the Wheel of Fortune. Johnny had this feeling that he could win, so he played again and again and again, and he did win. But he insisted, and something very dark was happening at that moment. And Sarah, his then girlfriend, was getting sick to her stomach, literally. She wanted to throw up, or maybe she did throw up. Why don't I remember that? Anyway, so yeah, she was sick and they had to leave. That night was supposed to be Johnny's and Sarah's like first tango together, if you know what I mean. But since everything was just so wrong, they decided not to go through with it, obviously, and Johnny had to go home alone. He took a cab, and on his way home, that's when the accident happened. The accident scene is like one of my greatest fears. Like it's why I don't drive much. It was so terrifying to overcome after I read like that part of the accident. I put the book down for a little while and then I got back to it, after I recovered from it. Obviously, Johnny had it worse than me. Like, okay, yeah. But yeah, the descriptions in the book were so vivid that it had a huge impact on me. Anyway, it seems like Johnny had some premonition cognition, like even before the accident, like since he predicted the numbers, or the numbers that would win in the Wheel of Fortune. But apparently those powers he already had were then became greater and stronger and exacerbated after the coma. Johnny could see plenty of things. He could see in the past, in the present, in the future, but he can't see everything. What he can't see is what he calls the dead zone. At first, the doctors tried to explain to him that what he sees is like a collection of memories, and the dead zone is actually like a part of his brain that was injured and is blocking him from remembering some things. I'm not sure I got that right. I'm not a neurologist. But on the other hand, when Johnny sees the future, the dead zone is something that could be interpreted as a space or a place, maybe, where Johnny could intervene and could change what he's seeing. And that's how he manages to change what he's predicted will already happen. And just because like he's always right, every time he sees something coming, it does happen. It's why he becomes obsessed every time he sees danger lurking. There are many similarities between the Dead Zone and The Shining in a paranormal sense. But the fact that Johnny could intervene and change the future is a huge contrast to the premise of The Shining. Both Danny from The Shining and Johnny from the Dead Zone have this superpower, and they both shine in one way or another. However, no matter how many times Danny tries to change the future, he doesn't accomplish much. He predicts that the boiler would go off, and it does. When Johnny predicts the fire, on the other hand, it still happens, but by the time they hear what happened on the news, Johnny has already managed to save lives. Of course, this could be attributed to the age difference, because Dan is like only 5, but I thought it was important to mention, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. An interesting part of the story is that people don't believe until they believe. Even though Johnny had helped the police with a serial killer case, people still didn't believe him when he spoke about the fire. However, they believed him after it happened. And that's what makes this super interesting, because Johnny could have like gone off and warned everyone about Greg Stilson destroying the world in the future, and nobody would have paid attention. They would have believed him in the future when it would be like too late. I don't believe in psychic abilities, obviously, but I believe in science, and maybe this is like a stretch, but I think there's a very important parallel we could draw from this story about how humans behave, how humans believe after. Climate change, for instance, is rightfully getting coverage these days with backed up scientific evidence, and yet people like still deny climate change. Even with the pandemic, there are still people out there who are deniers of the COVID for some reason, but they believe after they get sick. And I'm only mentioning these things because they're happening now. And climate change is happening like really slowly, but COVID is happening like really fast. And B, because they're both pretty dangerous. They're both disasters, actually. And speaking of disasters, there are cases where scientists warn people, and politicians ask people to evacuate cities because of a, say, typhoon coming their way. And people don't believe them, and they stay put, they stay in their houses, and then the typhoon hits. It's a terrifying thing. I have a master's in disasters management, so I've worked a little bit in that field. So yeah, what has been seen can't be unseen. And people keep asking me why I'm not scared of horror books. Believe me when I say there are much scarier things out there than books. Books smell good, at least. Anyway, the fact that Johnny understands how people believe after and realizes that he can't warn them, he could only act to save them, that's of massive importance. And it makes me wonder what that says about human beings. Is it a good thing that we believe after, or is it a bad thing? I guess it could be both. So moving on from disasters, the last thing I want to point out about this book is a fun one. It's a mention of Carrie as a novel. When Johnny predicts the fire, a girl accuses him of making it happen, like that girl Carrie from that book. This is quite an Easter egg, and also a paradox, because not only are the two books connected, one nests within the other. So if Carrie is a book written by Stephen King in the Dead Zone, then that means that Stephen King lives inside the universe of the Dead Zone. But the Dead Zone is also a novel written by Stephen King. So Where does Stephen King leave? Are there two of them? It's a paradox, and it's perfect. Go check out the video I made about Carrie, by the way. Anyway, this went on for way too long, so I'm gonna have to say goodbye now. That's it for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.